life is actually very simple. You are only taking the next step and the next step and the next step. And many things can help you taking that step. Homeopathy is one of the beautiful things that can help you, particularly if you're stuck. And it's not the remedy that does the work, it's dynamics. And I believe strongly within ourselves, we have a driver and we have a connector. And by that I mean there is a kind of intrinsic, we come with this kind of inner drive to heal ourselves, this inner drive to develop, to evolve. And development, evolving, self-actualization, self-realization, mastery in life, or healing are all the same process. And it's important to distinguish between wholeness and unity, because you can have a wholeness, but if you don't see the unity in it, you are lost. You need a certain amount or quantity to perceive the quality. Like Kant says, a feature running through. Vitulka's essence, Jeremy the verb, Sankaran the sensation, or central delusion, he also used as a term before that. Anandasaran the wall. It's all different expressions of the same thing, trying to perceive things as unified as possible. For me, the main tool to get to that point is
Today's guest is Andreas Bjørndal. Now, it's not often that I read out a full bio at the start of the episode because I figure if you're anything like me, you probably just want to get right into the episode and start listening, see if you resonate with a person, and then you'll go and do your own research. But Andreas has such an impressive bio that I have to read it out for you. So here goes. He founded and led two of the most respected multidisciplinary clinics in Oslo, bringing together more than 20 practitioners across traditional, alternative, and integrative medicine. At the same time, he was a pioneer in education, serving for nearly 2 decades as educational director at the Norwegian Academy of Natural Medicine, where he shaped curriculum, developed innovative approaches to learning, and guided the majority of homeopaths, naturopaths, and veteropaths in Norway. He has been a teacher of virtually every aspect of homeopathy and naturopathy, ranging from materia medica and clinical practice to philosophy of science, rhetoric, and therapist development for more than 40 years. Internationally, he has been a tireless ambassador of the field. As chairperson of the Norwegian Association of Homeopaths, the European Council of Classical Homeopathy, and the International Council of Classical Homeopathy, he has not only led, but also initiated many of the most important organizational and professional structures we take for granted today. He helped establish the first European guidelines for homeopathic education, guidelines that are now recognized globally as the standard. His honorary membership in the Norwegian Association of Homeopaths reflects a lifetime of service to the professional community. As a lecturer and course instructor, he has been invited around the world for more than 4 decades, holding seminars on homeopathy, integrative medicine, philosophy, self-development, and spirituality. He has trained healthcare professionals, including medical doctors and nurses, on the role of homeopathy in patient care. And his advanced training programs for practitioners have influenced generations of therapists. Beyond medicine, he has guided groups through self-development processes, spiritual initiations, and even journeys of initiation in Egypt. Andreas has also contributed at the policy and research levels. He served on the Norwegian government's Archetypes committee, which laid the groundwork for the Act on Alternative Treatment, and on the Ministry of Health's working group on private import of medicines. He has published extensively, hundreds of articles in Norwegian and international journals in print and online, as long-standing contributions to The Magic Happens magazine and his own site, Polarity. He has conducted frontier research both regarding methodologies as well as exploring the healing potential of close to 200 new homeopathic medicines. In short, Andreas' career encompasses the whole spectrum of homeopathy: practitioner, teacher, researcher, author, international spokesperson, and organizational leader. He has carried the field forward with vision, dedication, and a rare ability to connect the scientific, the practical, and the spiritual dimensions of healing in an inspirational and unified way that makes it easy to understand and apply. To learn more about Andreas, check out his website, holonity.com. That's HOLONITY.com. And his other website I am not going to be able to pronounce, so I'll pop that in the show notes. It's skarpsnokkklinikken.com. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to the Homeopathy Hangout podcast, where we discuss all things homeopathy from around the world. And now our mum and your host, Eugenie Kruger.
Hello, homies, and welcome back to Homeopathy Hangout, where today we get to hang out with Andreas Bjørndal. Did I say it right?
Very, very well.
I was just saying to Andreas before we started recording, I think he started homeopathy when he was 5 because he only looks about 50 and he's been practicing for 45 years. So that's the only way I can make this math work in my head. And then we just started chatting and I'm like, no, let's just start recording, because when you've got a 45-year homeopathic history, I don't know how we're going to fit this into an hour and a half podcast. We're going to try really, really hard. So Andreas, I just want to say welcome to the show. It is lovely to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to chat with you, and yes, as you say, I've been thinking myself, going down history lane, preparing what should we talk about. There is so much, where to start,
Exactly.
It's like,
well, we do
so
start at
many
the same
things.
place. We start at the same place for everyone. No matter how famous you are, you have to tell us the story of how you discovered homeopathy. So we can start there.
Well, I will try, because I think that, it's something that you can turn the other way around, that homeopathy found me in a way, because as a kid in Spain, I stole like spices from my mother. I mixed them together. I placed them different places, like under a tile in the ceiling, under my bed, hoping something would change, hoping something would be different. And I knew there was something within the substance that I was trying to get in touch with. Later, we moved on the countryside in Norway. And at one point in school, all the kids were collecting plants, preserving them in books under this like glue kind of plastic.
Like flower
And
pressing. I used to do that as a kid as well. I
yes,
had a
yes,
flower
flower
press. Yeah, I
pressing.
loved it.
Yeah. I remember I was walking home from a good friend of mine, and I stopped in the woods. I took a shortcut with my bike, so I was going like slowly to make it like, to manage to go the way. And I stopped and I looked around me, and there were like, spruce trees, pine trees, mosses of different kinds, some ferns, blueberries. And I looked around, of course, with the awareness from school of all the different, species. But I knew within myself, one day you will know all these substances. You will be able to name them, and you will also know what they are about. So there was something within that, I was deeply attracted to all substances in nature. And growing up in Spain, my father was an artist, my mother as well. My mother was doing yoga and astrology. So, you grew up in a kind of pre-hippie kind of home. So I was like going out in nature by myself. I was providing myself with some, snails, cracking them with a stone, eating them, exploring, nature. I was fascinated by a new fish I hadn't seen before. I was bringing home hedgehogs. I was bringing home, crabs even. My mother said, they need to be in the sea, they will die. So anything in nature was just fascinating me so much. And then the next step was like, being very much interested in spirituality. I started to do yoga without knowing it was yoga. But my mother practiced yoga when she was pregnant with me, that back in Spain. And then doing like, these exercises, keeping my breath, standing on my head. One day I fell down from standing on my head. And my mother came running up to my room. What happened? And I told her, and then she gave me a book about yoga. So I was practicing like, every morning my yoga. And I was reading books about spirituality. And I decided, for a profession, I wanted to help people, perhaps being a medical doctor, a psychologist, or even a dentist. That was the professions I knew about. Then my mother came back from England with some books about reflexology. She put them, in the bookshelf, but I took them out and I read them and I started to practice on my peers. Like I was 13, 14, 15 years old, and in the big breaks in the middle of the day, they would come with, a bad shoulder or some sport injuries, minor things,
Yeah.
you know, were in that kind of therapeutic kind of realm. Because I had so many interests, I often ended up sitting in the back of the bus on the way to school or back to school, telling my classmates about different things. My mother told me about astrology. I could tell them what was typical for each star sign, So I was lecturing and I was practicing very early. And then I was looking for what kind of profession. And I heard there was some kind of, nutrition, some herbal medicine, things you could do. So I ended up studying at the Norwegian Natural Medicine Academy. I didn't know that their main subject was homeopathy. And I had no clue whatsoever what homeopathy was about. The teacher in homeopathy, he was dressed like a medical doctor in a white robe. And they were giving pills. And my first impression was, this is like medicine, they give pills. People should learn why they are sick. They should be given the tools to improve themselves. That they need to work with energy. So I had a kind of skepticism towards this very medical-like profession. But, starting to learn materia medica, one day my mother came and said after a summer holiday, I went to the doctors and he said I had lumbago. And I knew, of course, lumbago just means lower back pain. So I didn't have the heart to tell her because she was so happy that she discovered what her ailment was. So she said, can you do something about lumbago? Is there a remedy for lumbago? I said, well, we need to sit down. I was a student, and trying to work it out. And I gave her Rustox. And, it went so quickly. And that's the thing with Rustox. I've seen so many times. It's so quick to act. It's for people that are on the move, that always, they even make excuses, sitting with you in the consultation room, raising up. What's the picture there about, or what the view you have, just to move. They feel embarrassed about telling you, I need to move. So they make an excuse. Then, I got really impressed. What is this? I gave her one dose and, like that. And then my father had hay fever and we couldn't, bring flowers home like children do. Mom, look here, some flowers for you. And then he said, you might, be able to help me too. I gave him Sabadilla and it took 10 years before he needed to repeat it. One dose of Sabadilla. 10 years later, he repeated it because he had it came back.
Your parents
And
have
then,
strong vital forces, hey?
Yeah. After that, he never needed to repeat it the rest of his life.
Wow.
So that, just changed my mind and I really went into homeopathy. So that was not a short, but
No, that's
that
beautiful.
was what made me become a homeopath.
That's incredible. Now, whenever I have people like yourself on the podcast that have had like over 4 decades of practice, I don't like making mistakes. And if I can learn from somebody else who's already walked a very long path and they can teach me things so I don't have to make the same mistakes, I really value that. So if you look back over the past 45 years, maybe just share. I mean, homeopathy has changed a lot. Maybe share with us firstly how you've seen homeopathy change over the years. Because I feel like especially, I've only been practicing since 2012, but especially lately, it feels like it's moved really fast. But if you look over the last 45 years, how do you feel has changed?
A lot of things. I mean, if you go back to the very beginning, it was like the pre-Vitulkian time because Vitulkas had a great impact in the mid-80s. Many of the schools we know today, they came and were established due to the inspiration from George. So you have a pre-Vitulkian time. Back in 1981, I visited a spiritual community in southern France. And I met John Morgan from Helios. And there was a medical doctor there responsible for all the people in that community. She needed to do something. So she was away for some months. And she asked, is anybody here, a medical doctor? There were none. There were 15 nurses and a halfway studied homeopath. That was me. I had just, taken my first years. So then, I had worked with a medical doctor as a homeopath before, up in the north of Norway. The school, picked up a few students and then the doctor interviewed them And I got, I was lucky to get there and work with him. So for some weeks, I worked in a medical practice doing homeopathy. So I had experience of like, a lot of different things quite early. That made me the head of that medical department in that community. But I didn't speak French at that time. And there was like, one Börike in English. There was a Kent repertory in the library. So I was lucky to have those two books. And then I met John, and we right away, got deeply in, connection. We became each other's best men, by the way.
At your
So
weddings? Like
yes,
your
in
wedding?
our
Oh,
weddings.
really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, I really regard John as a very dear friend of mine. And then he said to me, I'm going back. At that time, he was working at Nelson's to learn homeopathic, making of remedies. And so he went back to London before me. And just a few days later, a parcel arrived with all the main remedies. So I could practice homeopathy and help people down there, with the homeopathy. At that time, I didn't see any limits, of homeopathy. You thought you could do whatever, and that's one, change. But I think that is more about being a young homeopath or an experienced homeopath, regardless of the
It's
historical
kind of nice.
timeline.
Like I sometimes miss that, like coming straight out of college and thinking you can treat anything and do anything and homeopathy is limitless. I actually miss that bravado that I have coming out of college because now that I know that, our remedies, our medicines need to be respected and we can actually do a great deal of harm if we're not doing things correctly. Now I'm like, oh my goodness, thank goodness. But also I think the
Homeopathy is not,
universe
is
sends you
not
the people
harmful.
that you need. No, I know, but I know where I was the same, like,
Yeah,
bravado. Homeopathy can do anything, can bring you back from the
yeah.
dead. And now I'm like, I'm just a little bit more careful. But we
No,
need
I
that, I
mean,
think, kind of to
it
push us
can
through
do.
sometimes.
It can do a lot of things. And then the next step was this Vitulkian area where everybody was looking for the essence. Everybody was going into like the psychology of homeopathy, which really is just like a follow-up of Kent. Kent was really having the same kind of focus. He writes beautifully in his Materia Medica, a feature running through this remedy. And then, he like in Sina Maritima, he says like touchiness runs through the remedy. They don't like to be, looked at. They are like extremely like capricious, like Camomilla. So he was like, perhaps the first one to lift it up to the whole person in a way. Of course, Bönninghausen and Hahnemann talked about characteristics, and they had a cluster of symptoms that was typical for a remedy. But then Kant really made this oneness, and Vitulkas took it on, spread it internationally. Then after some years, there was like, a lot of new people coming that was not just following Vitulkas, but, going their own ways. At that time, I had a 2-year postgraduate focusing, that was in the 90s, early 90s, focusing on archetypes, miasms, and developmental stages.
Wow.
And you had like, Jeremy and Rajan and Massimo and Jan, of course, people that, were starting to think by themselves and going new ways. And when George entered the scene, there was a lot of reactions. You couldn't believe it. People, said, "Oh no, this is crazy. You cannot do like him," And the principal at the school I later, took over, he said, "If you write on an exam and you only write Vitulkas's ideas, you will not pass." So
Wow.
it was like every time there is a new thing coming, there are people reacting, wanting to stay with the old. And after George, the same thing happened with many people, when Rajan came, with his sensation method. There has been different approaches, but if you don't look into particular persons, but try to perceive it, it's moving to a bigger whole on, from the cluster of a few symptoms to the whole person, to like groups of remedies, not one remedy, but families of remedies. And the next step has been not only groups of remedies, but how groups of remedies align in a sequence of development. So today the focus is more on what stage you are in. And this is really a very important realization because it's only one process. You know, life is actually very simple. You are only taking the next step and the next step and the next step. And many things can help you taking that step. Homeopathy is one of the beautiful things that can help you to make that step, particularly if you're stuck. And it's not the remedy that does the work, it's dynamics. And I believe strongly within ourselves, we have a driver and we have a connector. And by that, I mean there is a kind of intrinsic, like, we come with this kind of inner drive to heal ourselves, this inner drive to develop, to evolve. And development, evolving, self-actualization, self-realization, mastery in life, or healing are all the same process. It's not different things. If you take some advantages spiritually, you heal. If you heal, you take advantages spiritually. It's not like there are different things. It's just that one process. It's really about the client and the client making the next step. And there are so many ways that happens. So going back to your question with the timeline, we have changed from bigger to bigger, wholenesses. And it's important to distinguish between wholeness and unity, because you can have a wholeness, but if you don't see the unity in it, you are lost. But you need a certain amount or quantity to perceive the quality. Like Kant says, a feature running through. Vitulka's essence, Jeremy the verb, Sankaran, the sensation, or, central delusion, he also used as a term before that. Anandasaran, the wall. It's all different expressions of the same thing, trying to perceive things as unified as possible. For me, the main tool to get to that point is the polarity in the client. And that's another factor that came parallel to this, evolutionary awareness, to see there is a polarity. And in the beginning, I remember very well, I was reading Naturum Muriaticum. I was reading it in Whitman, this Jungian psychoanalyst. And I was thinking with myself, it desires salt. It has aversion to salt. It's aggravated by salt. What's the mistake? It cannot have desire and aversion. There must be a mistake here. What's the right one? Somebody has made a mistake. Let's, take it away. And on the top of it, it's not only aggravated by salt, but it's cured by salt. So, there cannot be a bigger amelioration than a cure. And then I realized, this is not some kind of conflict. It's the core of the remedy. It's like, the really center. So for me to get into a deep understanding of a remedy, an inner knowledge, I have coined this term be-knowing because we are missing this word in the English language. Do you speak German? Erkennung?
Ich verstehe sie nicht. And Scheiße, that's all I can say. And Regenbogen. And
you have
I speak Afrikaans, but and there's a few words that overlap, but no, I would love to. And also at the same time, I'm glad I don't, because it would open up a whole new world of homeopathic textbooks that I would never have the time to read. So I'm glad I don't speak German.
When I studied homeopathy, we were obliged to have good marks in German to be able to start. So everything was German books.
Yeah.
But in German, you say verstanden, begriffen, erkennen. Verstanden means to stand in front of, like understand, you say in English.
So we say verstaan in Afrikaans, verstaan.
Verstaan, yeah.
Verstaan,
and
yeah.
begriffen is to grasp, to touch. And erkennen is to be and to feel at the same time. So I call it
That's so
be-knowing.
interesting. What was the second one? You said, because we say begrip. It sounds like that was similar to
Begrip, yeah, it's the same.
Begrip. And then
begrip
herken. We say herken.
is grasp, grippen.
Yeah, we say begrip, yeah.
Begrip, yeah. And then you might have erkennen as well.
Yeah, we say herken. Yeah, we say it with the H. Yeah. We
Yeah.
have herken and erken. Admit and herken is like notice, kind of like notice.
Yeah, but it's like a deeper inner knowledge, you know. That's a word we are missing in the English language. So be knowing is like the way I'm trying to like compensate for that to make
It's
that.
so annoying when you have a really good word in your language and like your native tongue and it just doesn't translate in another language because there's no amount
Yes.
of word of that language that you can use to describe it. So I understand your frustration. So we'll just talk about
Yeah.
be knowing from now on.
Be knowing a remedy is like a state where you really know it deeply and you can actually say something about the remedy which has not been said before. Like, you know, your children or your husband, you could say how they would react if a plane was canceled at the airport. You know, you would know their reaction, even if it has not happened before. So that's the state of like really knowing a remedy. To get to that, you are very close to the polarity of the remedy. If you look at the remedy like Staphysagra, it's a very good remedy for toothache. It's a very good remedy for post-operation cutting, you know, with a surgeon's knife, you know, the trauma from that. It's a good remedy for like, you know, people getting or being angry with you and you're not able to respond angrily back. So you're suppressing your anger. In all those circumstances, there is pain coming in, a surgeon's knife coming in, anger coming in, this kind of Martian warrior like kind of energy invading you. But since Staphysagra doesn't have an aware relation with the inner warrior, it stays within them. The same thing goes for honeymoon cystitis. You know, they have sex for the first time. The masculine energy stays as an infection with them. So, giving the remedy, you are making that inner warrior come into the light and become aware. And they are able to say, hey, stop it. You know, that's enough. I disagree. That's why we call it a divorce remedy. So the
Yes,
polarity
I've
in
done that also
Staphysagra,
within my first year after graduating. Yeah, I gave Staphysagria and the couple got divorced. They did get back together though, which was like about
yeah,
6 months later, but on her terms. So that's
yeah, very good,
it was
very
a
good.
happy ending.
So you need to warn those husbands.
Yeah, yep.
So sometimes they won't listen. But it's like, you know, this polarity with a kind of female, very sensitive, receptive energy on one side. And that quality is there because that masculine self assertiveness is subdued. That's something that is in the unaware darkness, in the basement, you know? So the remedy makes a balance, but understanding that polarity makes you understand the core of the remedy. I remember, like in the mid 80s, people even thought Staphysagra was an angry remedy. But when they are angry, it's the darkness that comes forward. It's irrational anger. It's an anger that is unaware. They do stupid things that they regret. They cannot understand. How could I do that? How could I throw that beautiful plate my mother gave me, you know, towards my husband? So it's a kind of unaware kind of anger because the warrior is really like in the basement, in a box with the chain around, locked. So to understand that polarity, it's not only good to understand the remedy, but it's also good to understand the healing process. Because for us homeopaths, it's so important not only to be able to see a remedy working by seeing that the ailments are decreasing and disappearing, but to really understand what this healing process is about. You might, you know, see a client says after Staphysagra, I feel more self-assertive, I feel stronger, and still all the symptoms are there. If they are more like physical, more fixed, more like, you know, structural kind of problems, they will need more time. And then you might say, okay, we need to change the remedy. You know, it didn't work if you are very focused on the more physical ailments. So to see the polarity of a remedy is not only important to assess the improvement, but also to help, you know, to provide some advice for the client, to make the client aware. After a first-time consultation, I always sit, you know, with the client and go through the case with them. I say what I hear you say, is that, you have this and this and this, and I've used the words of the client, but I make sure to, in a way, have my comprehension, my understanding of the polarity. Because going to a homeopath is, healing you by itself. Coming to see you as a person with your positive, unconditional regard, to use Rogerian therapy term, this unconditional positive regard is in itself starting the cure. Anton Antonovsky used the term salutogenesis, meaning creation of health. Instead of removing ailments, you are improving health and manageability, comprehensibility, being able to do something about it, mastering it, is starting the healing process. So before you even, have any clue of what you will prescribe, the healing has started. Just the intention of the client coming to see you is opening up a door, So there are so many factors that are important to be aware of. And I think it's so important. For me, it's always been an aim to make my clients understand and perceive what I think is going on, and not have this position of being like a kind of authority. I remember, in the early Vitruvian years, people were saying, you should never tell your client the remedy. On the opposite, I feel like if they want to know something about the remedy, go ahead. I'm not
That's part of the
afraid.
healing. I'm the same. I engage them with the remedy. That's why my desk has got, I had clients this today, but my table all around me are full of books, because at the start of
Yeah,
the consult, my table is clean. And then by the end, it's just full of books everywhere, because I'm reading them passages from the Materia Medica to see if they
yeah,
resonate with it. And
yeah.
yeah, it's so important.
I think, just to keep on with your question, this polarity, it came, at the same time. So this is a new thing, and I think it's really so important. When I see the first polarity kind of qualities coming forward, I know I'm close to the core of this case.
Is that
And
something
then
you teach? Sorry, I'm just jumping the gun here, but do you, when you talk about polarity, is this something that you teach in your courses and things?
absolutely,
How do you
I
learn
have
this from
developed
the Materia Medica?
both. I mean, I use it when I read remedies and learn remedies. I use
Mm,
it when I take the case. And of
mm.
course, I combine it to find the best proper remedy. And the last 20, 30 years, I've been teaching archetypes, which is a system I have developed where, every archetype has a polarity. So I have allocated remedies accordingly to their polarities. Actually, it came from, seeing that remedies as Calcarea carbonica, Carcinosinum, Kali carbonicum, Natrium muriaticum, Conium, they are so similar. There is something very controlled, very serious, very structured in all these remedies. Carcinosinum is a nosode, Conium a plant, Kali carbonicum, Calcarea carbonica, minerals, Calcarea carbonica, also of course an animal. So regardless of the kingdom, they have these common qualities. And not only that, those qualities are at the core of the remedy, more important than the kingdom quality. Then I saw that all these qualities in these clients had a polarity. Natrium muriaticum is holding control because they are so sensitive inside, And Kali carbonicum is black and white and very controlled, but they weep when they are narrating their symptoms. And they have all this structure that is dissolving and going into structure again, particularly around pregnancy, when women get full of water and the pubic bones are loosening up and then putting in back to structure. That kind of process, if there are challenges with that, Kali carbonicum is a beautiful remedy to be aware of. In carcinosinum, you have the same thing, control, and then you have this lost childhood within too much responsibility too early. So I realized that not only is this quality at the core of the remedy, but the polarity is the same in all of them. And then I discovered, with Staphysagra, with Nux vomica, with colchicum, with the snake remedies, there was a complete different kind of theme. It was a theme about a theme with much more energy to it. Like, anger, assertiveness, or sensitivity, receptiveness, a more masculine female kind of, polarity. And as I was seeing these patterns, with the background of having this deep interest in philosophy, spirituality, growing up with a mother giving astrology courses, and I attended them, so I learned like astrology with the mother's milk. I was looking for these patterns, and I realized that this first pattern was Saturn Moon quality, polarity, or Bina Yesod in Kabbalah, or like Capricorn Cancer in the zodiac. And I saw patterns. And then when seeing that, I also had learned the circle, which is a square, which was taught by Joseph Reves, Jeremy Sher, Misha Nolan. And it's about the four elements and placing polarities with them. The problem with the square is that, you place Earth. In reality, Earth can be in opposite to water, air, and fire. But in the square, you only have one polarity. So you are only covering a third of the possible polarities. And that's why so many people using the square are not feeling it's a complete model. Because to have a complete model, you need both odd and even numberness. You need the polarity and you need dynamics of the odd numbers. So I was looking for the smallest number having both. That's number 6. So I decided to make a system based on the smallest amount of classification, so it would be easy to learn and at the same time contain as much of reality as possible. So I developed a system of archetypes, with 7 archetypes, one in the middle, which is the master, and that is the center periphery. It also has the polarity. A remedy like sulfur is very much, focused on being in the center, being the best sportsman, being the most knowledgeable, in the class. A sulfur student, you spot him right away. He asks a question, but it's not a question. It's adding information that perhaps you didn't know. He wants to be, I know this. Is that right? Isn't it? Isn't that the beautiful part of the piece of knowledge? Yeah. So they will give you some knowledge, pretending asking a question to be in the center. Sulfur can be dressed in, rags and be dirty. And still they feel like, I came to this party, everybody else, has these nice clothes, but I came, that's really value. It's the center, I am the best guitar player, or I am, the one that is most famous or should have been most famous. So sulfur, it's about center and periphery. They are great being in the center. In a 3D model, the center in a cone would be the top. They want to be at the top. They bring new things from the top down, new ideas, new ways of doing things. The struggle for sulfur is bringing it all the way to the periphery, completing it, fulfilling it, being, the center all the way out to the skin, all the way out to the clothes, all the way out to the surroundings. So the healing process of sulfur is very often that they clean up, they throw away things, they publish their book, they complete things. So this is center periphery kind of theme in remedies. So basically I look for the polarity in the remedy and I try to describe it in a way that is dynamic. Like with sulfur, they are so preoccupied about being in the center that they don't, give energy to the periphery. A healing process in sulfur is if they come to you and they say, you know what? I realize I've been so violent in a way towards people. I have imposed myself so much upon them, my ideas. without even considering if they were interested or if they were able to grasp or if they had any kind of use of what I was saying to them. Now my focus is, what can I give this person that will make them take one step forward, regardless of my own things? Then the sulfur is beautifully cured, because then, it has been able to use this center quality all the way out to the periphery. So that's like, the process in sulfur.
How do you come to that? Like, what if it sounds like you've drawn on a few different things. Is this like clinical experience, or is this like...
To be honest, it took me a year. It took me a year. I knew sulfur. I mean, it's one of the first remedies you read. I knew a lot of keynotes, a lot of symptoms. I was, thinking and thinking, what is it? What is the core? And I read in Hahnemann much later that they tend to start. And Jeremy also has this verb starting for sulfur. But that was only one side of the coin, so I needed something more. And I was going on. And suddenly, in a flash, center periphery. Center periphery. That's the shortest, most abstract way you can contain as much of sulfur as possible. So it takes time sometimes. It takes years sometimes. It just works in the back of your head, remedy by remedy. And then, you start to see what is the core in the remedy. And knowing remedies at that depth makes you it gives the new and the latest step in homeopathy. That is, you become aware that remedies are not physical substances. Remedies are not energies. Remedies are something that is in the realm of awareness. I've done a lot of provings. I think I've done more than 200 provings. In 2008, I started to do a monthly proving. And it was a combination of trying to challenge phenomena that we had seen and try to improve the methodology, trying to ask some questions which should have been asked, I think. One thing was that doing provings, I realized that even supervisors get symptoms. We did a proving of the virgin oil of the first drilling of oil in the Norwegian Sea. And we got the very first oil and did a proving of that.
Wow.
And that kind of personality was a kind of like this Bruce Willis actor that can solve any kind of problems. It's really hectic, and a kind of action man, fireworker or something like that came forward as a kind of personality. But my whole life, if I took a pint of beer, I could taste the beer in my mouth for days after. Like my body couldn't take it. I never really liked it. And we had a Christmas gathering at the school. There was one beer left after the party in the fridge. And whenever I was in the fridge to take my food or something, I saw this beer, and I had no interest whatsoever. During the proving, I suddenly said, I would like to have a beer. And one day I went to the fridge and I took out the beer and I drank it. So
did you have a taste in your mouth for days afterwards again?
No.
Really?
It disappeared. So my body certainly was able to handle it. There was an improvement, and I was not part of the proving. I was just a proving director. I was not a supervisor at all.
Wow.
We did a proving of Fratercula is a bird, an Arctic bird that comes in the middle of April to an island of Norway. It has the beak of many different colors, and it's a beautiful bird. And during that proving, of course, we had this clouds high up with all the colors as a synchronicity phenomenon. But one symptom that came forward in the proving was a desire for grapefruit juice. And again, I was just the director of the proving. I was not involved. And when we sat down in the meeting, this, desire came up. And I realized that, during these last weeks, one shelf in my fridge has been full of grapefruit juice. I needed to buy 4 or 5 of them, not to run out. Never after, never before. We did a proving of moose milk, And one of the supervisors, one of the provers said, I had no symptoms, don't think I'm a good prover. When we told what the remedy was, I have to add, I had a visit living in Oslo, living in town, in the suburb area. Twice a moose came to my garden. So it was quite
Resonating with that energy.
amazing,
Yeah.
Still, she did not have any symptoms. And during the moose proving, the news, the national news on television said there is a strange phenomenon happening. There are flocks of 30, 40 mooses coming towards Oslo at the middle of the day, every day, hanging around for a couple of hours, and then going back, disappearing in solitary, or two or three of them, together.
It doesn't surprise me at all. I think us homeopaths have to be careful when we do provings, because I do think we're opening portals into like other dimensions, or we're like tapping into things that are actually quite powerful. This is something I actually think we're going to understand a lot more in years to come. Because
Absolutely.
we have an incredible tool at our hands
Yeah,
with our
and that's
provings.
what
It's
I
like a
want
shamanistic
to.
type thing that we're doing.
Absolutely. That's the next step I want to say where we are heading towards, because I really think that these people creating a group awareness of moose made the moose aware. There is a much bigger moose there. There is a chief moose. There is a moose on a human level. Let's go and see him.
I completely believe that. Actually,
Yeah,
Paul Terrio has said this a few times that, animals will sacrifice themselves in front of him when a remedy needs to be made. And I think maybe the animal
yeah.
world as well, when they're like, okay, the humans need this, I'm going to sacrifice myself so they can make a remedy. Because when you put
It's
that
amazing with
intention out
animals.
there of wanting to like create something, it's the substance just presents itself. But then other way around, when you're doing it, it's also, yeah, presents itself. It's,
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. I've seen so many cases where, the owner of an animal has an illness and the animal gets the same illness, or the animal gets an illness and then, later it's discovered that, the owner has it. Animals carry with us, they live in the flock, they provide for the flock. So they are happy to carry on our problems. So it's like, they are a huge blessing in that sense.
Can you also, on this journey that you're taking us on, can you also like tell us any pitfalls that you see? Because I would love, like, this is having you so valuable. You've got this hindsight that you can look at, and then you can look forward. And, based on the past, you can look at, what's ahead, like any sort of
Yeah,
pitfalls that you can warn us about as well, that you've seen happen and that you think we should look
I'll
out for.
try. I'll just
I'll just
finish
add
this
that in
one
there.
first. So, doing these provings, we started off, what if none of the provers ingest anything? So, people have done meditation provings with a bottle in the middle of the room. What if we additionally don't potentize it? We take the crude substance, we put it in the room, it's covered or in a box, so it's blinded. So we did that for a year. We took mineral substances, and we took substances that we knew, like Natrium muriaticum, aurum, plumbum, and so on. For the aurum proving, by the way, a guy called me because, additionally to homeopathy, I've been so interested in perennial philosophy. I have done I have a course, a series of 7 weekend courses on Kabbalah and other things. So perennial knowledge for me is like a deep understanding of the basic principles behind language, behind any model, behind any philosophy. And it boils down to very simple, basic units. So it connects things, and that helps a lot. Having gone into that way of thinking makes you be able to perceive and see these unified qualities in remedies and in clients. So back to the provings, the first thing we did was crude substances and, not potentized, not ingested. Choosing substances we knew about so we could compare. And, the symptoms we got fitted beautifully. With Aurum, that day, a guy calls me and he says, can I attend any of your Kabbalah courses? And I said, right now, there is none that are scheduled. I'm doing a proving tonight. If you want to join, you can come. And he said, oh, yes, I would love that. This guy knows nothing about homeopathy. He knows nothing about natural healing at all or medicine. He is an electro engineer. So he knows about electricity. And he sits there during, the proving, and we have a meditation. And then he says, this is the strangest thing I ever have experienced. And we say, what is it? Well, I only saw half bottom of things. The top was black. Whatever I saw, it was cut in the middle, and I saw only the legs, four legs of a horse or a moose or a cow or whatever. And I knew the symptom. Orem has the symptom, that they are blind, but they only see the lower half. So Orem and a couple of Orem souls has that symptom. And there was 2 or 3 or 4 homeopaths in the room. So I said, has anyone heard of this before? And none had heard of it. They didn't know the symptom. So I thought, okay, it might be that he picked up on my knowledge, or it was a proving. On top of it, when we were doing the Orem proving, a friend of mine was going to bring some leaf gold, the gold that you put on things. He forgot. So we didn't have gold. We didn't want to use a wedding ring or something that was personal. So I went down to my office 2 floors further down from the proving room. I printed out a layout of the periodic table. I took away all symbols, all letters, all numbers, just placed a dot in the Orem. I added a drawing of the electron configuration of Orem, and I wrote Orem. And I put the paper on the table with a cloth above. And still, we had these Orem symptoms coming forward. The last proving we did that year was supposed to be Meteor. And again, the guy that was, intended to lend us a Meteor changed his mind. So in the last minute, I thought, okay, let's just make it diamond. I didn't tell anyone. 5 minutes later, this guy comes up. It was on the 6th floor in a tower in a huge building. And this guy comes up and said, what happened with all the signs for the schools? And I said, what do you mean? They are all away. It's just a new sign there. A new sign? Yes, it says Black Diamond. What? It happened a film crew had asked the secretary to come up and take some shots from the outside of the building. And they were just taking down all the signs, putting up that Black Diamond sign.
Oh, wow.
The same day, there was a film that was released in Norwegian cinemas about Evil Harry, a postman that discovers a big sack full of diamonds and takes it. So there are phenomena, so many I could tell you about.
I think anybody doing provings will tell you things like that. It's actually it can be a little bit scary as well. It's kind of like you go into this portal and you don't quite know what you're in for.
So I did then decide I want to explore this. I want to do research on this. I want to find out what's going on. So next we did the year after was even taking provings of groups of plants. And still we could get reliable information aligned with what we knew. The third year,
a group of plants.
A group of plants.
Oh, wow.
A proving of a group of plants. That worked beautifully. Then I said, since we had the Orem and we had the diamond just based more or less on nothing, a drawing and just intention, I thought perhaps I was the only one knowing the substance. It was single-blinded, but I was participating. I said nothing at all about my experiences before everybody else had said what they had felt, not to influence. Then I decided perhaps still they are picking up on something, in me. So I asked Joe Evans in the UK that wrote this beautiful book about sea remedies. I said, Holder, could you allocate these 10 days next year, sit down at 9:30, decide for a remedy or a group of remedies within the sea that you know so well. And then when you have decided, you send me a mail and you make sure that you don't write the name of the remedy on the title of the mail, but says like, answer or something like that, or decision. Or so we did the provings. We sat down, we collected all the information.
So just a meditative preview. So like just intentionally meeting, like going into a meditative state, recording your symptoms, and it's like double blind because not you or the provers know what they're meditating on or what they're kind of consciously allowing to come in unconsciously.
Actually, it's quadruple blind, and I will explain. All the provings we do it in 5 steps. First, people tell what has happened in their life lately. Then we have a meditation, and we share the experiences of the meditation. Then the word is open, and we discuss themes, what has been running through in the experiences and in the meditation. And fourth, at this stage, we already have a deep understanding of what the substance is about. The fourth stage is to align with that. And then I will repeat some of the central points and we will align with it. And the fifth stage is just individual, and you just sit and identify with the process. It's a proving done in 3 or 4 hours. It's a proving that gives a deep understanding of the remedy, and it's always healing. It's always beneficial. We are done with having, bad effects. It's like, really you feel a blessing from each and every proving. And this is bringing me to the new step in homeopathy. The new step is connecting with the awareness of the remedy and being aware of what the remedy gives, not what it takes away, but what it adds to you, what, is the positive influence. You can align with a remedy, like we just spoke about Staphysaria and sulfur. If you really deeply know them, it means you can be online with them. You can bring them into the consultation room. You can connect with them like you have experienced, as most people have. You think about someone and they call you, or they turn up around the corner. And you can do that intentionally. There is, Rupert Sheldrake did these experiments, with dogs and owners. He was filming, the dog, and he was filming the owner. And the third person was asked to call the owner and says, now you can go home.
Yeah,
at any time during the
and they get like a
working
little
day.
beeper, and then you can see the activity
then,
on the dog the second the person checks the beeper or they get the call. Then it's amazing, hey?
Yeah, and the dog knows,
Yeah.
no, oh, he's coming, So you can connect intentionally. You can connect with the remedy. Asking about pitfalls, you might think that you are connecting too easily, without really knowing the remedy deeply. And then you connect more with your own things, with your own ideas or stuff.
Yeah.
But when you reach a point where you have this deep, erkennung or be knowing of the remedy, then you know that you can connect with it and bring it into the room. And already there, you are adding on all those factors that are there to heal the client. And you're giving a remedy already. Like, with these provings with Joe Evans, we did everything. We sat down, we took all the 5 steps, did the proving, and Joe Evans had not even started deciding the remedy.
That's freaky.
So we had finished, we had concluded the theme, the
That's
polarity
so like, I think that's
in
like
the
next
remedy.
level. Wow.
And it's not single-blinded because I didn't know. It's not double-blinded because none of the participants didn't know. It's not triple-blinded because nobody involved didn't know. It's quadruple-blinded because it was done before. So we broke all the rules of connection and causality. One of my main drives in life is questioning everything I believe in, questioning everything we learn, just asking questions. It's one of the most valuable attitudes. Could it be different? Could it be another thing? Could it be a different way of explaining it? Very early in my life, I remembered a kind of pre-existence, earlier lives. And even if I remember that and I have learned this kind of chronological worldview, I'm open to, it might be something coming from my genetics. It might be multidimensional. It might be that this soul is close to me. There might be so many different ways of explaining it. And it's not important for me what is the right answer. It's to be open-minded. And then, the answer will come as a kind of deeper be-knowing that deep within. That's the way it is. So this openness is important for me. I tell you, back then in 2010, when we did these provings, I was mind blown. I was like, what is this? I didn't believe it. I hoped almost that would fit. To really test it, I took one of the provings. I sent out our proving information to 10 expert homeopaths, asked them to assess the information and guess which remedy is it. And I tell you, they were so many hit it right on. This is Ambra grisea. And somebody were ranuncula, like pulsatilla, which are very similar. All the ranuncula, sea, pulsatilla, and Staphysagra, aconitum are very sensitive, very water remedy-like qualities. So it was so close. So basically, that was liberation. It was okay. The remedies are coming to us as much as we are coming to them. There is a connection here on a deeper level. I have had experiences in my life. You wouldn't believe it. I mean, being in Rome and London, crossing streets, meeting people that, I just needed to meet just there. There is no time to go into all this kind of, things I could tell you that I have experienced. But the main thing is that homeopathy is now going into a realm where we are becoming more and more aware of the consciousness level, and that the remedy can be called upon, the remedy can be related to, and you can give it in different ways. So with the provings, after this awareness, I decided to make, intentional provings on abstracts, archangels, Egyptian gods. I have made 29 provings on stars. I'm just doing all the tarot deck, the Major Arcana. I did magic concepts like the magic circle, the Holy Grail, the Excalibur, because it's something that exists in the realm of awareness.
Ask you about that. Do you think we need, there's so many of these types of remedies being made. Do you think we need more remedies? And why do you think it's important to do this? Because we have so many remedies already. And, this was what I was wondering before, is that you clearly know the remedies at such a deep level, but how can you get to know all these remedies so deeply?
It's impossible.
So
it's
many.
impossible to know them all.
So,
no. That's why,
So do you do some of them just for fun and just to see what happens? And then, the polycrests you learn on a really deep level? Or what do you do in this
Yes, I mean, the polycrests are a good start. But then, the focus now is more and more on developmental levels, to be aware what kind of themes are running through.
But
This
why
morning
do you think it's
before
important? The angels and what were you just saying, the tarot decks and stars? What drives you to do those sorts of substances?
Sometimes I'll tell you, during some years, I didn't decide what we were going to prove. I sat down. I always felt it was told to me in some way or the other. Very clear signs. And as I said, I love challenging everything. So instead of listening to what was said to me, sometimes I sat down with my computer, opened the internet, closed my eyes, and just did like that, on the computer, and pressed pictures. And there it was. You need to do a proving of this.
That's awesome. I have not heard of that one before.
No. But it didn't come out of desperation or a way of finding a remedy. I was just challenging, the feeling that it was told to me. And I could confirm, yes. So in a way, I've been doing groups of things. I did stars, 29. I did 5 Egyptian gods, 5 archangels. I did all the elementary substances in the standard model. Tau particle, muon, electron, all those things that are, building up the atoms. I've done all the crystal structures, not the crystals themselves. I did 20 provings of crystals as well, which was a beautiful experience. You know, crystals really make you understand that we are living in a kind of illusion regarding space and time. Just imagine a crystal lattice. You're sitting inside the crystal lattice. All you see is the same structure in all directions. You close your eyes and you open them 5 years later. It looks the same. You close your eyes and you are moved to the other end of the crystal. It looks the same. This state of sameness is a deeper reality within the crystal realm. Crystals, gemstones, as Peter Tuminello has really shown us so deeply in these books you're showing here and the structure one as well. It's like he has shown so deeply, the understanding of crystals. I had him stay at my house once, and I met him a few times in the teacher group, and he's such a beautiful guy, with his dedication to the crystals. But he made us understand that people in a very, really terrible state, it's like the basic structures in your mind and in your body are crushed. It's a question of the deep structures. It's like having been in a terrible accident, or like your whole life is turned upside down. Somebody burned down your office, your family has been bombed. It's like really structure destruction processes. And despite these terrible challenges, the gemstones make you realize that the solution is there and always was there, and the past and the present are the same. You are on the way of returning, just going through these experiences. But this deep peace that they give us, that, in a way transcends the challenge and transcends this impossible situation that can never get healed. I'm crushed in all my bones after this accident. That's the beauty, in the healing of the crystals. And that was something we realized during these provings.
I haven't heard it explained like that before. That's beautiful.
It's like, it gives an insight. So I do provings to get the insight. I do provings to improve, to become a better person. What the gemstones really cultivated in us. Some people, attending the provings always were nicely dressed, good colors and delicate makeup or something like that, but not too much, but a carcinogenic perfection. And then they could turn up with a spot on their shirt. And it took away the need to be so perfect on one side and just be yourself, get in touch with the inner values. But on the other side, it made you really aware that the most important thing in life is to cultivate the virtues, to become more wise, to become more loving, to become more just, to become more pure, to become more truthful. That was the gift that the gemstones were giving. So it's a journey that is very pleasant. It gives you something, and you remember them. When we did Isis, the Egyptian goddess. Isis is like Mother Mary. Isis is like the main queen, the main female figure. She is like married with Osiris and the mother of Horus, sitting on the throne. Getting in touch with Isis was getting in touch with the subtle realm that you best realized in nighttime. This hugeness, like the womb of the mother, the cosmic womb. You feel the presence of a mother energy that is always there, always protecting you. You don't need to fear. You are heading back home. This is just for a short while down here, It's like this safe, secure kind of quality. And Horus, the sun, which in Egyptology, Horus is the symbol of the disciple, the neophyte, the searcher, the man on his way to becoming a master, to becoming a god. So he has 7 stages, the 7 Horuses. there was such a verticality in Horus. After the proving, I went out of the room and I felt I can do anything. Nothing can stop me. I can face whatever challenge it takes. My adrenals are so full of sap. My, spine is so strong. I can fly above whatever, this strength. So this is the new step we're heading towards, relating to the benefit of the remedy, relating to what the remedy gives us, and becoming aware of what is needed to be cultivated in the client.
Do you think we should start
the
calling
next step.
should we call our provings improvings?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. It's an improving. So it's this quality that, you get to feel within as something that is yours. The old Egyptians, when they were dying, they could say, I'm Osiris, I'm Horus. They would say it because in Egypt, a god is called a Neter. The word Neter is most likely the etymological, the word science root of nature. So Egyptians were perceiving energies or qualities in nature, and they were perceiving them as an awareness working in nature. And that awareness was given the names of the gods. Like Osiris is the awareness that apparently dead things can come back from the death realm and grow, become green, have flowers and fruits. Osiris is a man. He's like the king of the realm of the death. He is green very often. So he is the symbol of resurrection. He was slain and cut into pieces, and Isis put him together, which is a kind of Christ-like, story. Or like in the Nordic mythologies, you have Balder, the same kind of god that also was slain or put to death by the enemy and reborn. So this ability in nature for this little stone-like black thing to become a beautiful flower, this is the principle of Osiris. So, all the gods are nature principles that the ancient Egyptians perceived. I feel really tempted to go into something now, but
I think to be a good homeopath, you almost need to know a little bit of Egyptology and Greek mythology and all of these
yeah,
bits and pieces, but you
I
kind of
mean,
learn it along the way as you learn as well. I was just
you
going to
have to
ask,
know everything.
okay, so this is a little bit funny for anyone watching on the video. You're going to go, why has Eugenie got an outfit change? And I have a very good explanation for that. So when you get to interview somebody as amazing as Andreas that has so many years, then you just you talk and talk and talk, and before you know it, time flies by. And as it turns out, Andreas had a client, and so we just ran out of time and we're like, let's just chat the next day. So anyone on audio, you wouldn't have any idea of what's going on right now because it's only when you've got the visual you'll see us. But yeah, so do you remember where we left off, Andreas?
Yes,
Oh, good, because
you are.
I have to admit, I only understood about 10% of what you said. But I don't know, is this an essential part? I've noticed so many homeopaths with decades experience, somehow they all end up knowing so much about mythology and about mysticism and all this sort of stuff. It's really interesting. But I guess your life,
Yes,
you were kind of introduced to all that from
it
a young
is, but
age.
it is, and it's a very important point, and it has a kind of it's so valuable to homeopaths, but we are in a way doing it in practice. I, believe in oneness. There is in the universe something which has the capacity of uniting absolutely everything into one, into a unified principle. And when everything is united, there is no space because things are united. There is no time because time would need to, be measured by something changing. Everything is one. And that's the only axiom or law that I really deeply believe in. I believe in oneness. And that's not something new. It's something which was typical for many of the ancient, philosophies, the perennial philosophies. In Egypt, they regarded two as a smaller number than one because oneness had to divide into two. So to become two, you needed two halves. You understand?
Well, even
So
Egyptology and like stuff that always like that gets woven in somewhere if you hang around long enough in the homeopathic world, it seems.
absolutely, and this is like when everything is one, all is also nothing because there is no, thing to compare with. It's just the oneness, and there is no space, there is no time. That's like, what I really believe is behind manifestation. So we are splitting away from that oneness into a 3D existence. But behind all that, there is a oneness. And I think the whole point is to return to that oneness. And I think homeopathy is the best way to help people return. So we are working with that oneness. We are working with perceiving connections with all the different informations. And we can perceive it as the name of a remedy. This is typical pulsatilla. Then we have like a tag, and that connects a lot of like mucus and clinginess and weepiness, and softness and all those qualities. But working in that way is creating in your awareness a connection of things into a more unified perspective. So working as a homeopath, you create this ability to see a unified, or a connection between things. And just taking the case, you make your client see the connection. Not necessarily always in a very like mental or aware or analytical way, but they can feel it. They can feel that there is a person there that finds everything I say connected, meaningful. There must be something that, is unified. And this unification process is very close to the perennial philosophies, which yesterday I was tempted. I didn't go there, but I will do it because it's important to understand. Going back in history backwards is a very difficult exercise because we bring with us like, presumptions that we have an individual that can decide by themselves. It was not like that. If you were a carpenter, your father obviously had been a carpenter, and your grandfather had been a carpenter. Your uncles were carpenters, and you had no say. You would be a carpenter like your brothers.
And
And
your surname was Carpenter
well, yeah,
eventually.
absolutely. So then, as you go, back even more, you get to a state or a time which is called pre-axial age. Carl Jasper was a guy that, said that there was a change. He was not the only one, but there was a change in history, 800 BC until 200 BC, which happened all over the world. Confucius and Lao Tzu in China. You had like, the Hindu philosophers, the Greek philosophers, the Hebrew, writers of the Bible and stuff. If you go back before that, people seem to perceive reality as streaming towards them, just like a child would like look around and see things, realize that that word dinner always seems to happen just before people are eating, and they realize connections, but it's just a flow. It's a flow of reality coming into you. And then there came a change where people started to inquire, analyze, and ask, do we have a soul and a spirit, or only a soul? Are we like, basically good, morally, or are we good and bad? Is existence consisting of 2 elements, 3 elements, 5 elements? In China, they decided 2 and 5. And they were discussing this for 200 years, the yin-yang school and the 5 element school. Remember, this philosopher believing in 5 elements was living a 2-day walk from the other guy. And then, it takes time. So, couple of centuries, and they decided to unite both. So all the 5 elements had a yin and a yang aspect. In India, it was also 5 elements, but they put it together to 3 doshas. In Greece, they ended up with 4 elements. Some said 1, some said 2 there as well. It was a discussion. So one difference is this way of approaching reality analytically, mentally. Is it this or is it that, and why? Logically. The other thing is starting to divide the, nature which is unflowing without any abrupt changes was digitalized into 4 categories. The 5 elements in China made them have 5 seasons. The 3 doshas in India made 3 seasons in India. The 4 elements in Greece is the reason we think we have 4 seasons. We could have early autumn, late autumn, midwinter, late summer. Indian summer is something that we know of. So there, this kind of understandings or ways of seeing reality formed like a foundation of our culture and our understanding of reality. Before that, it was not something that was analytical. It was something that was perceived. The ancient Egyptians were looking at the night sky and they could see the streaming from the different zodiacal signs, that it was more red or more yellowish. They could see the qualities and feel the qualities. And they would see this quality streaming towards me is the same as I see when I see a ram, an Aries, or an ox. So they would call these areas of the sky the ram area, the ox area, which is the beginning of the understanding of the zodiac in astrology. But people perceive these qualities, as we spoke about with Osiris and with Horus. It was qualities in nature. Something in nature has the ability to turn things apparently dead into life. That quality is Osiris. That quality is not, a god which walks about. It is an awareness that penetrates the whole nature, and it's the awareness of Osiris. So when Pharaoh died, he could say, I am Osiris. He would then say, I have the ability to turn what is apparently dead within myself into life again. I don't need to reincarnate anymore. I have, reached a state of eternal life. That's the way he would say it. So we are heading back in a way. It's like humanity on the journey of awareness has gone down into the most material, and then we're heading back up, and we are at the same level as the Egyptians were. We are again introducing pictures to, talk, to communicate, emojis, like, the old Egyptians did. What we do in homeopathy, finding the energy or awareness behind substance, is a return to what the Egyptians already perceived. But we have been, through the analytical and scientific, and now we are again approaching it in a way of getting to know it deeper. As we said yesterday, be knowing, an inner being where I am Osiris, or I am pulsatilla, I am sulfur, I am calcarea carbonica, because I know what it is to be a calcarea carbonica. I know it so deeply that I can put myself into that state of feeling overwhelmed, of having to compensate by making lists, by making structures, having this shell that protects me, because inside I'm so soft and so sensitive, lying here at the bottom of the sea. It's cold, and it's like, so there is no distance, because every, thing that happens around me streams into my shell, and I can taste it. I can feel it. I'm strongly influenced by it. I'm influenced by that octopus eating that crab just a few meters away from me. This extreme sensitivity. And then, I have this strong shell protecting me. And so, in a way, you can say that we are in a profession that will attract us to that kind of knowledge which is unifying. And the perennial philosophies, astrology, Kabbalah, numerology, and so on, resonates with our way of thinking. So I think that's the reason so many homeopaths, in some way or the other, will feel, oh, this is similar. This is something, I know this way of thinking. I know this way of, perceiving reality.
I love that you talk about that because I have just come off our tutorial with our Centre for Homeopathic Education students or CHE students, which is funny because I know you're teaching for CHE this evening, actually, our time.
Yes.
So for our students in Australia here, I did a tutorial today and they've got their first assessment and it's around creating a resource on 3 different remedies that represents the style in which they learn. So it can be visual, it can be more like, graphs or, highlight, or however you want to do it in your style.
Yeah.
And so I was just giving them an idea because they're brand new students, right? So they, still need to learn how to read Materia Medica. And so I pulled out some mythology because I said, if you're going to do it on Arnica, don't just like read the dry Materia Medica. Go and read on the mythology of Arnica. Go and read where does Arnica grow. So go into the botany. Where does it grow and which season is it most alive? Or, because that client that you're seeing, it might be that, if the daisy grows on this area, then maybe the person, if they buy the sea or by the mountain, they feel better depending on where, the plant naturally grows. Go and read up on the toxicology of it. Go and read up on, just all the various things. Like you can draw on everything around you to learn your Materia Medica. And it was so lovely because you can just see the students' eyes light up like, wow, they didn't realize that they can draw on the entire natural world around them to learn about homeopathy. So it was lovely to see their faces light up. And you're right, like unity is part of homeopathy because, we just integrate from all sorts of different places into our learning.
No, you're right. I mean, absolutely any field of knowledge can be of benefit to homeopaths, which again, makes us a polymath. Used to be a person a few centuries ago that was a theologist, he was an astrologer, astronomer, a mathematician, he was a medical doctor. People in those days had the ability and the possibility to read all books available on mathematics because there was not that many, everything available on astrology.
Yeah.
And they, learned all these different fields. But we homeopaths are in a way a new version of that kind of person that, chemistry, oh yes, yeah, I need to learn my chemistry, botany, of course, zoology, of course, psychology, yes, medicine as well, It's like all those things are of value for our perception and understanding and our work, So
Absolutely.
absolutely, it's great. And I would love to have the possibility to have a school where we could go through the Materia Medica as something that you experience, like, experiencing every remedy, doing a proving. And with this way that I do provings, you can do that because you can make a remedy and learn it within a couple of hours, so you get a deep, presence and understanding of the remedy that way. Which brings us back to your question, like, the timeline of homeopathy. We saw that, you get a bigger and bigger wholeness from a little like cluster of symptoms, characteristics to like the whole person. And, Ken saying a feature running through, or Vitulcas's essence, and other homeopaths gave it other tags or expressions. But it was basically this to be able to see a whole person as a whole remedy. And then we made it even bigger to groups of remedies, families of remedies, kingdoms of remedies. The next stage was to see that there was stages, developmental stages. One level went into the next, went into the next. Currently, many homeopaths just use it to match the remedy, but it will be more and more clear that we need it to also assess the cure, because any case will be at one stage and need to take their next step in life. And we will see the direction. And to see the direction of a client, you need to understand the polarity of the client and of the remedy. Because the polarity is a straight line going throughout the entire life, And, you know, the beauty of having worked so many years is like I have seen clients like for, you know, decades, and they come back after 10 years, they come back after 5 years, you know, something happened in their life. And you see that the red thread, the basic theme is the same throughout. Despite that, I have not seen any patients that have, you know, responded on the same remedy more than 23 years is the longest I've seen. It doesn't need to mean that there is not such a remedy. We have 9,000 almost remedies, but, you know, just plants that we have named is around 500,000, you know, 450,000 or something, just the plants. You have some insects where you have hundreds of thousands, you know, or a million of different species. You have like, you know, many realms we haven't explored yet. If you just go back 20 years, we had no birds. We had just, you know, 4 or 5 milk remedies. We had just the same amount of snakes. So we have gotten so many more remedies. And luckily, the dynamics is able to respond if you are close enough. If you look at the amount of remedies we have and the amount that there is in nature, it's very likely that never ever has any homeopath given a simillimum. We have just given similia,
Yeah.
and the similia has worked beautifully.
Yeah.
So beautifully, we were convinced there were simillimums. So I've seen cases, you know, I will mention one case. A young little girl comes to me and she had Hashimoto in her thyroid gland. She had had many ear infections, so many that her hearing was like, you know, getting weaker and weaker. So she comes into the office with her mother, and I say to her, "Hello, what's your name? Mommy, what did he say?" You know, to everything I would ask her, she would say in a loud voice because she couldn't hear that her voice was, you know, so loud. And she had been to, you know, my teachers, many homeopaths, 10, 12 different good, well-respected homeopaths, gotten more than 40 remedies. From taking her case, I realized she had the polarity between the archetype, the old and the child. The old, as I said before, are a quality similar to carcinosinum, calicarb, calcarea carbonica, natrum muriaticum, remedies with like, you know, a kind of quality of being able to control, being able to structure, being able to observe. And on the other side, having this more hidden or unconscious or undeveloped quality of sensitivity, vulnerability, the child kind of realm within them. So the old at the top, you know, and the child in the bottom is the polarity I saw in this case. So I was looking then for remedies within that, you know, that's the beauty of knowing the polarity. You can eliminate 2/3 of the remedies, and you know you're looking for something which has that kind of split in it. She had not gotten calcarea carbonica, to my big surprise. Not that she knew, not that their mother knew, so that was the first thing I gave her. And nothing happened. Then, you know, she hadn't gotten carcinosinum either. This was back in the 90s. And there is a, you know, interesting phenomenon in homeopathy. You have this kind of winner of the year or this like newcomer that, you know, takes us with storm.
Yeah.
Recently is Streptococcus tilch is one of the recent ones. Carcinosinum was in the early 90s.
Yeah.
In the mid 80s, it was Thuya. And, you know, it seems like many homeopaths around the globe realize what the remedy is about at the same time. You get articles, you get books even, and people start to lecture about it, and you get a deeper understanding. So this was just a few years after carcinosinum entered the scene. Actually, it entered 30 years earlier with Phobister and his proving and his work. And Vitulkas mentioned it having 4 symptoms at that time. It was like blue sclera, you know, cafe au lait, constipation, and cancer in the family, you know. That
Do you
was
know
all.
what? This is the part that I love hearing because it reminds me, like, you know, we didn't know much about the remedy then, but we know so much about it now. Like, it's great that our ideas of remedies change so much over years. And yeah,
Yeah. they grow upon us in a way, and we start to know them better and better. And from having the next stage where there is so much mess and so much information, then you start to get the unified perspective, and you see more and more how it connects. And you get to a point where you even are able to predict what would have happened or what should, be expected as a reaction. So I gave a carcinosinum, nothing happened. Then I happened to be in a conference in London, and I listened to a proving of lacumanum. And I came back, and she had a follow-up, and I was sitting there, and I said, what is this? I never experienced this before. I have been spoiled or blessed with a very good memory. So it's like, I remember once in my exams at school, I wrote two small, very, very small remedies. I wrote a lot of symptoms on both of them, but I couldn't remember which was which. So I just said to the teacher, this is one remedy, this is the other one. But the only thing I don't remember is which has which name.
Wow. It's funny you say about the memory, because there's a few things that you said and I'm like, damn, he's got a good memory. So yeah, you're definitely been blessed in that way.
So, I sat there with this client, and I'm thinking, I know this remedy. I've heard this remedy, but where? Where is it from? What is it? What is the name? And I'm sitting there as I'm talking to the client, trying to remember. And suddenly I realized, this was just 3-4 weeks ago. It was this, presentation of lacumanum. And I bought the booklet. So I went to my shelf, took it up, looked into it. And I said, yes, we need to order lacumanum. So I asked them to contact Helios, and, they got the remedy. And she comes back, and I said to her, so how are you doing? I'm doing great. I can hear you now. So, it was amazing. But remember, this case, and she responded well on lacumanum for 10 or 15 years,
So
she
what
had
was the
some
polarity? So you said about the polarity there. How
the
did
polarity of the old and the child. In lacumanum, it's this dependence, independence. It's a good, way of describing it.
Okay.
All mammals are dependent of their mothers to survive after birth. They're not like, the simpler animals, the animals from earlier stages of evolution, like fish. They are just spread out in the sea. Bye bye, babies.
See ya.
So turtles are, coming up. They're hatching from their egg by themselves, heading back to the water turtle. So mammals, they have this relation with the mother. And there is a theme there that at one point they need to be independent. So dependency, independency is a strong feature running through all the lac remedies. In lacumanum, you have, of course, the human aspect to it. And as I said to you, there was something with this girl that, she was the older sister. There were two. The brother was really not behaving nicely, had anger fits. And if the parents, said no to him or stop it, she would cry. She would weep because she felt so bad that, the brother was getting in that kind of situation and she was not handling it. She tried to be so proper, but still she was completely dependent of her mother. So there was one side of her trying to be good at school, getting good marks, cleaning up her room, being proper. And on the other side, the child had not, let go. She was of course, with the illness, with the hearing, it's natural to understand the dependency. But that was a part of it. Later, I treated the mother, and she did not have any contact with her mother. Only thing was that once a week, her two children could see their grandmother. The grandmother would call on the phone, say, I'm just outside now. The daughter wouldn't even reply. She would just hang up and send the kids out, and the kids would return a couple of hours later. So they had some relation. So there again, you see that the same theme of closeness, too close, and not having any contact was there as well in that generation above. And the mother also got lacumanum. So the grandmother never came because, of course, the daughter never told her about homeopathy. So then, this case shows so clearly that you're given all good remedies. Brilliant homeopaths, put their soul into it, trying to help this child. But there was not a remedy close enough to help her. So, sometimes you need that particular remedy to get the response. That's the good thing about, developing more remedies. And
Is
on
that
the other side,
sorry, this is the practical side of me that's always like, how is this relevant? So this polarity, like the polarity of the remedy, is that something that you teach, right?
yes.
Okay. So where can we do that? And this is the ADHD part of me that's like, I want to know the information because I want to know.
Right
I'm say
now,
that I say that tongue in cheek. I don't mean to offend anyone. I say that
no,
in
no, no,
like
no.
a tongue in
I
cheek way.
taught about the archetypes in many different countries all around
Yeah.
Europe. And
So this is as part of the archetypes. This is what you teach
this is
the.
part of the
Okay,
archetypes.
gotcha.
All the
Yeah.
archetypes have a polarity. Right now, I'm doing a webinar for Marcus at the Che uh,
Okay.
on the
Yeah, because you've got this,
archetypes.
there's the 7 archetypes, right? And
That's
then
right.
you're teaching the polarity in each of those. And then there's
That's right.
remedies in each of those.
That's right.
Okay, got it. Excellent.
Remedies, remedy groups. It's
Okay.
basically, you can say that this way of perceiving things more and more unified.
Yeah, gotcha.
I said it is intrinsically connected with polarity. When you see polarity, you can see where the core is. It's like, I envision that, every individual in a way can be described as the spiritual world or God's hands being taken apart, creating that unique individual polarity. And they are heading back to the unification. So that's like, a way of just explaining it or seeing it. There is a polarity and it seeks for
Okay.
unification.
Okay, beautiful. And then the polarity, is there basically like 7 polarities in each, like one polarity in each of the 7 archetypes? Or are they
No.
different? Okay.
If you remember that 6-pointed star you just showed, it's like, 3 main polarities. I made it as simple as possible. So the old and the child is one polarity. The mature man, young girl is another polarity. And the mature woman, young boy, is the third polarity. And then there is one fourth one, which is at the center. And that is the center and periphery. So you can see that there are like
That's the one that you said is
three.
like related to sulfur, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Sulfur and many other remedies. Like,
Okay.
there you have like, the polarities.
Mm-hmm.
This is just some words. If you stop there,
Mm-hmm.
let's wait, stop there. And the people that can see it should
Yeah.
just read those words and try to find those 2 words which are not fitting.
Okay.
If you look here, there are some words that are more related.
I'll quickly say that for anyone on the audio only. So there's self-assertive, harmony, knife, gallbladder, angry, blood, tenderness, man, fire, red, and muscles. So 2 words that are not
Now you
sort of
can roll on a little bit further on the side, and you will see that, these red words, they
mm,
are connected,
yeah,
and
yeah.
2 ones, if you go
So
a little
harmony
bit,
and tenderness, not.
you see? So
Okay.
there is like, we are able to connect words which are not synonyms. They are not connected. You could call them archeonyms or something like that. But,
Mm,
there is a connection there on a level that is not described. And you can easily spot the words that does not fit.
mm,
But back to the polarities,
mm-hmm.
you can look at this as like, a polarity that is, there are, on this circle, you can place any client on any
Mm.
degree.
Okay.
So there is the description is the main 3 qualities and the fourth with center periphery.
Mm,
But if you imagine this to be 3-dimensional as a sphere, and you
okay.
have the old at the top and the child at the bottom, and then mature man and young girl, the red and green on the sides, and the yellow blue in the front and the back, then you can easily see that the old is neighbor to all the other fours except the one in the bottom.
Okay.
So like a remedy like Ruse talks, it has the polarity, the old and the child, but secondarily, it has young boy, mature woman. Every person can be angry to some extent, or if it's just like squeezed enough. Every person feels love. Every person feels issues about, being immature or not good at something, not having the competences. We have all the archetypes. What happens during life is that we try to master the challenges we meet. So we have a kind of coping mechanism, a mastering strategy. And people having the old archetype strong, they have that as their mastering strategy. I'm solving problems in life by making a list, calcarea, by taking control, by taking responsibility, carcinosinum, aurum, by, doing my duty. That's, who I am. Everybody should see me being the responsible one, should see me being in charge. I take control. The young boy is like jesting and witty and talkative, communicative, always having something to say, always having something to tell. Yes, I heard about that. I read this article too. I know what you mean, This guy told me the same thing, or things like that. Rostox has this combination. On one side, the chilliness, the coldness, the control, the suppression of deeper emotional stuff. And on the other side, this like restlessness, better by moving. So you can see like, in the spherical model, there will be the old and then tilting slightly towards young boy. But in the flat model, the old and young boy are not neighbors, are not next to each other. So to make it like visual, you just place the axis between them. So, any model is a reduction of reality. And to make it as simple as possible, I decided to find the smallest amount of variables to make it easy for people to learn and to remember. So basically you have three basic polarities.
Okay.
So going back again to the question.
I think I still only understand about 10% of what you're saying, but it's starting to make a bit more sense now. So you finished with your question because I also just want to get a bit more information on where I did see that CHE has there was an email that got sent out with your name, which I think is why I've heard your name mentioned so many times, but I think that's where I saw your name pop up. So you'll have to tell us about the course as well, because you also have some things that you offer on your website as well. So do this first and then tell us about all of that, because I also want to let our listeners know where they can get hold of you and learn from you.
Okay. So basically what I'm saying is that homeopathy has developed and we are getting into this developmental stages perspective and changing it from where the remedy is located to where the client is at and what they need to do to continue their growth and their mastering in life. And that changes the perspective from removing symptoms or illness to cultivating health and abilities and strength. So we're starting to see what the remedies are doing. And it's coming up in the more intentional meditative kind of provings. That's where, people get that kind of information first. So people doing those kind of provings, they will often say this remedy is good for. It helps for this, like it, helps for this chakra, or it, gives strength, or it gives determination. So it's a change to the other side of the polarity. Additionally, we are getting more and more aware of the change of energies and awareness in the consultation room, the state of the homeopath in the consultation room, and that there's a lot of self-healing mechanisms which are more stimulated by going to a homeopath than by going to a dentist or a medical doctor looking at 15 minutes up next, because you are listened to, you are seen, you are perceived as something of value, something important. which is like something that, we really have to work on with students very early to make them, really appreciate that every person is unique. Every person is like, a wonder. It's like a whole world. You don't know what is hiding behind here, Suddenly this strange remedy turns up, or a new aspect, of a very well-known remedy that you suddenly start to see much better. I remember cases, where I prescribed perhaps a remedy I didn't know very well, or a rare remedy. And in the follow-up, you start to see, wow, and then sometimes you even offer that client another follow-up for free just to get
I've
because
done
it's
that just to learn more about the remedy.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's your benefit,
absolutely. Yeah.
Would you mind, coming back tomorrow evening and have some, more explanation of your process? It's really like of benefit for my
I
understanding,
do
and
exactly the
it's
same. And
yeah,
I tell them how much, the information that they give me, how much it helps me to help other clients. I love doing that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I see that change, and I see that people will start to be able to unite with the remedy differently during a proving. Like what we feel during our provings is the pure presence of an awareness. The room changes from being an empty room, like any room wherever, a classroom wherever, into a church or a temple or a sacred place. The air gets thick, the air gets warm. There is a quality that you feel there is a presence, and you feel the impact. You feel like how that presence gives you something. It's a blessing, You feel like I told you with the Horus, the Egyptian god Horus, this verticality, this strength that you are experiencing what it is to be Horus, But we never see the negative aspects anymore. I've done these provings since 2008, 10, 11 provings each year. So we learned a lot from, that journey, and that, the different ways of perceiving what the methodology should be. And basically, I'm saying that with the new provings, people become more and more aware of the conscious aspect and the conscious presence. And when you get aware of that, then you start to realize that this experience is so beautiful. It is like taking the remedy, not in 1M, 10M, or 1000M, or a million M. It's like taking the remedy alive, aware, and it cannot be compared to any other way of taking the remedy. So I've been wishing myself to have like a group, like a band or a choir, of colleagues. Come on, guys, we need to make this guy have a strontium carbonicum. Let's sit down now and we will call upon strontium carbonicum to make it present in the room so that client can experience it. I think that's where we're heading. So this, like, is the long line from small totalities to bigger and bigger, transcending the individual to the group, even treating the group, which we didn't mention, people
Mm.
like Harry van der Zee, and Peter Chappell worked in Africa, with giving the same remedy for a traumatic collective, process. That's like the changes we are heading. And every of those steps bring conflicts and challenges, and people say you cannot do that, that's not homeopathy. And for me, to question and be open-minded is the most important, to
Mm.
continue with that.
Mm.
I'm lucky to be in a group called the Quintessence Forum with Vladimir Petrocci,
Yeah, it does amazing.
Douglas
Deborah
Brown,
Collins. Yeah.
yes, and Angelica,
Yeah,
Lemke.
Limke. Yeah.
She's my sixth cousin, by the way.
Oh, no way.
You wouldn't think
Did you figure that out?
Well, she said that, she had ancestors in the north of Norway. And then, I went into Jenny, or, my heritage, and I looked up and I found out that, it was 6 levels back. And then we had the same, ancestor.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
I
The
wondered
world
what
is
other
so
healers there
small.
were. There were probably a few healers on both your sides. That's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely possible. So that's nice. You live here in this like the Scandinavian peninsula, Norway and Sweden are like, so far up, and we are not on the continent. Then still, the Vikings went around all the place. And I live actually in an area inside the Oslo fjord, which is called Peninsula, with three different names, three times. Nes, Odd, Tangen. So Nes, Odd, and Tangen all means peninsula.
Wow.
So I live on the peninsula of the peninsula's peninsula.
That's really trying to get the message through, hey?
It's a peninsula like aiming towards Oslo.
Oh.
And in this area, there were a lot of artists coming some decades back. It was cheaper and it was close to Oslo. This history you can hear in many places of the world. And then the artist area becomes like fancy, popular, attractive.
Yeah.
And then the prices goes up.
Yep.
So these days there are lots of artists here still, and it's the area that doesn't have a university itself, but despite not having it, has the highest level of education, like PhDs and master degrees.
So you're in the right place.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a blessing to be here, and the whole peninsula is full of crystals. Across my property, there is a silica, ore, which is this depth in average. Is more than 1 meter some parts, and it, like ore crossing. I don't know how deep it is.
Can you send me a photo of it? That must be amazing.
Yeah, I could send you a photo, of course.
Wow.
So it's like, there is so much crystal, in the ground here. And if you tell people in Norway that you are from like this peninsula, they will say, aha, so you are anti-vax.
Oh, okay. Well, that sounds like a great place to come visit, that's for sure. Sounds like my kind of people. I have to be careful saying that out loud these days. Oh, that's amazing.
And
Wow.
it's a peninsula, so there is water all around. You can see in the background, you can see some of the water. So on three sides we have water, then we have woods, and it's beautiful to be so close to nature, and at the same time so close to town.
Sounds perfect.
After COVID, we build, this practical practice building next to the house. I share my practice between Oslo and being here, and that's great. I started actually collecting online clients because, I have clients all over the place, and then, putting them a day where I didn't need to go to town. Then, clients that live in the area said, but you're practicing, from the area. Cannot we come and see you there? So then we made it possible for people to come and...
So you are still taking clients online?
Yes, clients both in Oslo and online as well.
I was just thinking before, I think this episode is going to be kind of like a little time capsule. And, you can listen to this in like 10, 20 years' time, and we can see whether your predictions of where homeopathy is going has come true.
I like that.
So I just want to, you've got two websites here, holonity.com, HOLONITY.com. And then the other one you're going to have to pronounce.
Skarpsno-klinikken, the Skarpsno Clinic.
Okay.
Skarpsno is the area in Oslo where we have the clinic. Okay. So it's the Skarpsno Clinic. And that's, for the practice, it tells who we are in the clinic and what we're offering, a little bit about each of us. But Holonity is my main website.
And you have to say what Holonity means as well.
Yes, I will. I was looking for a word that, could really contain the core of what I'm doing, not only within homeopathy, but also in perennial philosophy. And a holon is a term that was coined by Arthur Koestler in The Ghost in the Machinery. A holon is something which is both a part and a wholeness at the same time. A cell is a wholeness, but also a part of a tissue. An organ is a wholeness, but also a part of the body. A human being is a wholeness, but also a part of the family, the community, the ethnic group, or, the whole population of humans on the earth. So a holon is both a part and a wholeness. And there is a hierarchy of holons, from the smallest holon all the way up to the biggest holon. So what we are doing is to make people more healthy, to make people take their next step in their journey, to make people master their life. And all those things means that you start to relate in a better way with the bigger group. You start to be of more benefit and blessing for humankind. You start to, like, work in harmony with something higher and bigger. So the degree of harmony between the one holon and its higher holon is what I call the degree of holonity. So it's the degree of health, it's the degree of awareness. So holonity, I choose it as a unique word, a word I coined myself, to also make sure it wouldn't be mixed with other things, to make a unique website. So it was a combination of a strategy of having a unique concept and finding a concept that would cover. I couldn't find the word anywhere, so I had to create it. So
well, we
holonity,
now have improvings and we have holonity. So
yes, and be knowing.
Yeah, and be knowing. Yeah, I love how you're just creating. If it doesn't exist, just create it. I love it. I love
Of
it.
course.
Well, you speak a few different languages as well. So you're just like making like words up as you go. With just
Well,
tell our
I
listeners
grew
again
up.
how many, because you mentioned to me, but tell
I
me
grew
about how
up
many
in
languages.
Spain,
Yeah.
and I grew up in Menorca, and Menorca is a part of Catalonia. So they speak Menorquin, a
Hmm.
dialect, of, if you say that Las Niñas Bonitas en la Mañana, that's Spanish. But in Menorquin is Las Nenas Macas del Matí. So it's, quite different. So I speak, both of them, but Menorquin has become very passive, so I understand everything, but I struggle sometimes remembering words. Oh, yeah, that's the word. Then I had German in school, and we needed German to study homeopathy, and herbology was all, in German. Of course, everybody in Norway needs to learn English, it's compulsory. So we had that as well. Then I went to France, where I met Jean in southern France. And I stayed there one time for 3 or 4 months, I think. So during that period, I learned French. And I had a very, huge interest in Egyptology. I went there as a guide. I had, trips back in the late 80s, early 90s, where I was the trip, administrator. I made the ads. I was the guide. So I made the whole trip and invited people to join to go to Egypt, which was a trip with meditations in the morning, in the evenings, and where I lectured about Egyptology. Then, of course, with that interest, I studied a lot of, the old Egyptian texts, and there are around 700 hieroglyphs. I've seen many of them many, many times. Many of them I know how to pronounce. I know what they mean, but I cannot read, the hieroglyphs like that. But I don't know. Many people can that. A few I know can, but very few. But I know, what they mean. And it's important because it's a different way of, it's a different semiology. Semiology is the science of how we use words, symbols to portray meaning. If you take the word pharaoh, pharaoh is Greek. It's para in Egypt, para. And it's written with two hieroglyphs. One is a square, like that, with an opening in the bottom. It's per, and it means house. The other one is a scepter that, the rulers have. And the scepter is like a double A. Per a. So it means the ruler in the house, the chief in the country, the chief in the palace, the ruling principle within what defines us, So it's a different way of portraying meaning, which is more in pictograms. And it says more things at the same time than just saying
A
the
picture paints
ruler,
1,000 words.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. And then I've been very interested in Kabbalah. So I studied, the Hebrew language. I know all the letters and their inner meaning. Every letter has, a hidden picture behind it. The first letter, Aleph, means ox, but it's not an ox in the picture. It used to be. It's the A. If you just look at the big capital A and you turn it like upside down, like this, the line across and then like this, you can see the ox head. So it fell down on the side and then it was turned upside down. So every letter is like, a concept. And the old letters and numbers were the same. A was 1, B was 2. So there was not different symbols for letters and numbers. That was split later. So now we're going back to something which unifies more and more. At this stage, we're going back to a state where letters and numbers unite. So that is like, the attraction I got for this like very deep way of perceiving things in a unified way. So basically, my interest is in how are we portraying meaning with words, with concepts, with symbols. And that's what the client are doing. They are portraying their meaning, to us, what they experience, how they feel it. And we can use drawings, we can use different ways of getting there. And they can get different, impulses from all these realms of things that carry meaning. Even a symbol has a healing, quality in it. So that's like, the language part. It's basically to understand, this deeper quality, which is my drive. And I've been genetically tainted. My grandfather, I think it was, spoke 12 languages, and his father 14 languages. So it's like, it runs in the genetics in some way.
Well, it's not good enough that you only speak like a handful. Then you're going to have to, like,
I really,
it's just not good enough.
The fallen angel in the family.
Yeah, the black sheep. He only speaks 5. We don't talk about it.
Sitting up there and saying, "Come on, guy, come on."
Brought shame on your family, Andreas. I don't know. Well, so I did see, like I said, I saw the CHE Pro emails that you're doing with Marcus and Center for Homeopathic Education through CHE Pro. But have you got your own courses or books or anything else that you want to tell our listeners about?
I mean, I have written a book on miasms. It's sold out. I'm rewriting it now. I just did a course on miasms, a webinar series, 4 webinars, which are available on my website, homeopathy.com. They are available in English, in French, in Slovakian, I think in Serbian, in Bulgarian, and in Polish.
You don't have it in Xhosa? You don't have it in Xhosa? I'm very disappointed.
I'm so sorry.
It's an African language. It's just fun to say.
It's due to my good friend, Vladimir Petrotsky, that
Vladimir,
he offered his platform. He had translators. I got hold of some translators, so it was simultaneously translated.
Oh,
that's
amazing.
why it's available in those. You can just go on my blog site, polarities.com, or send me a mail, Andreas N. Bjørndal @gmail. So it's easy, but you find the connection and,
Okay, we'll have it in the show notes as well. So people can just put into the show notes and find it there too. Awesome.
And I'm also writing a book on the archetypes as well.
Good.
So far, I only lectured it, in many, many different places. And right now I'm doing it for Che, and probably it will also be available online. And of course, if you are a Pro Che member or Che Pro member, I'm not sure what.
CHE Pro or Che Pro. Or
Che Pro. Yeah. Then you will have it available there as well.
Yeah,
because it will be there, and then you can watch all the 4 of them.
Amazing.
That's things that are available. The 2 books are coming, and then these webinars as well. I have lectured, almost any possible topic within homeopathy, and lots of medical subjects as well, naturopathic and stuff like that. When you are the principal of a school, which I was for many years, every now and then there is a lecturer that turns sick, and you just have to perform. So I had a trick. I made everybody that was lecturing to give their lectures into a pool of lectures. So all the teachers had that available.
Yeah,
And they
great.
just needed to needed to recognize the ownerships and who started it, and they could continue it. So it was, available for us
That's very
to have.
smart. Yeah,
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
I've been quite a lot involved with education. It started back when I was the chairman of the Norwegian Homeopathic Society. We realized people that were trained in Sweden didn't have any clinical training. So when they came to Norway to practice, they just didn't manage. They didn't cope with that change of just learning things to practicing them. And then we realized we needed to make some requirements on the clinical training. And that work with the requirements of medical training, homeopathic training, and clinical training was the start of the European guidelines. Then we took that off to Europe, and I became, the first chairman of the European Council of Classical Homeopathy, as well as the international. So at one point, I had these three chairs at the same time, and we were working, closely with Stephen Gordon, that passed away some years ago. Anashada also was in the core group, and we were working with, implementing some kind of standards. But we soon realized that the discrepancy was so big within particularly medical field that we needed to be flexible. We had some naturopaths from, the US and Canada that had 4 or 5,000 lecturing hours in medical subjects. And then we had one guy from New Zealand having 50. That was like the biggest, and in Europe there was 600, 800. So instead of, forming it to requirements, it became guidelines to aim towards. The strange thing is that all those years working, with that, I also sat in 2 government commissions implementing a completely new law for complementary
Oh,
therapy in
wow.
Norway and the Research Institute, and rules of regulations of importation of remedies to assure that we could get hold of whatever we needed. So I've been working quite a lot politically. But in the early years, it was very much like we need to have these requirements, we need to reach this level, and being more strict. And as I became older, I became more like a grandpa. And it's like, anything goes, you can help, anybody can do some benefit for others. And the focus changed more to provide the clients with all the tools they need. I learn them how to prescribe on themselves. I have courses for my clients on, first aid things. I learn them how to change the potency to make them, self-sustained, and understanding their own process. It's their process, it's their life, it's their health. I'm just walking next to them for some years or something.
That's
So
beautiful.
it's a very different approach. And I see that the young new generations today with social media and stuff, they are not able to learn the way we learned. In the old days when I was teaching, students would come and say, can you give me names of other books or more books I could have? 10, 15 years later with the internet, can you give me some links? Is there some websites I can explore? 10 years later, do you know any YouTube videos I can watch?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like they don't sit down and read long texts. They want to have it served much more editable, much more digestible, much more light and easy. And we need to just accept that change. The knowledge is available in such a different way. And now with artificial intelligence 1 year ago was like a first year student. Now it's like a second, third year student already. You can ask of a remedy and you can get a good description. There are weaknesses, there are pitfalls.
Yeah.
You need to be aware of where is the source. I did some research on some remedies some days back, and I realized that ChatGPT took all the information from one Russian website. It was not bad, but it was very limited, I was wondering why it was so, not nuanced and
Yeah.
very simple. And perplexity is artificial intelligence, which is much more aware of telling you the sources and putting them up for you. But this will change so quickly that, in the future, we just have to accept that there will be artificial intelligence which will find remedies for people at a quite good level,
Yeah,
and will
it's
tell
actually
them
quite
how to take
amazing.
it and what to be aware of,
Yeah,
how to understand reactions.
yeah.
So we are living in a completely different world. What was a revolution when Kent and his wife put up all the rubrics in the repertory, came into a new revolution when we got the computers and, Frederick Schroyens, and of course also, David with the Synergy. No, today it's called Synergy. It was called Mac Repertory and Reference Works at that time. David Workington, he was the one starting that. And at that time, you suddenly saw repertory available online or in the computer, and suddenly you had all the books available. I haven't used the repertory for 15, 20 or more years. I'm going into the computer. I make my own rubrics. I want desire slash craves slash aversion nuts or peas or salt, because I know desire and aversion can be,
Exactly.
only
There's an
listed
energy with,
in
yeah,
one place.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I want to have it with me.
Ah,
And then I make my own rubrics, and the computer takes all the books, materia medicas, all the repertories, lots of articles, lots of cases, and searches them all. So I get a much better hit. Of course, we could say, well, then you get too many remedies. Not at all, because, these computers are just a reminder of what might be a good remedy. Then I need to look at the suggestions. No, 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 no. Yes, that's a good one. Oh, that's a better one. Oh, that one. That's beautiful, So that's like the way it changes. And now the artificial intelligence is replacing to a new step. And I think, you cannot do anything about it. You just have to make sure to use it in the best possible way. And
yeah. Yeah,
um,
absolutely. We've got a AI on our website that we've had there for 2 years. She's called Jeannie. And it's been
yeah,
great. We've had so many clients say to us, my child had an ear infection 2 o'clock in the morning, and I went to Jeannie and she told me what remedy to use and it helped my child. So I think
yeah,
it's definitely got uses to it.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Andreas, it was really, really lovely to have you on today. I'm glad we spread this out over 2 days because I would have hated to have to cut it short. And I'm sure we can chat for much, much longer. But I'm excited to go have a look and see CHE Pro. I'm going to have to catch up on the ones that you've already done. And you're doing one tonight again, you said?
Yes, the
Yeah.
third one in the series of four.
Okay. Incredible.
Yeah, it's
Well,
been great being here with you. I mean, thank you for
oh,
having me. It's been a really nice experience to
it's
just
a
chat.
huge pleasure. I hope you get to come hang out in Australia at some stage. It would be lovely to have you over here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I when I was took my master's degree in homeopathy, I studied with Alistair Gray, and we
Oh, yeah.
always we always said, good morning, good night, how are you? Good
Yeah,
morning, good
yeah.
night. Because we were
Dif-
at the opposite sides of the earth.
Was he in New Zealand then, or was he already in America then?
No, he was in New Zealand
He
and,
was in New Zealand
Australia.
then.
He was teaching
Yeah, yeah.
both places.
Yeah, he was one of my lecturers as well when I was in New Zealand, but I watched the DVDs of him.
Yeah, yeah, I see.
It wasn't tape deck. It wasn't that far ago. It was just DVDs, but
No,
amazing.
I met him during some conferences, and then he
Yeah,
also was involved in this teaching work for a while.
yeah.
So I got to know him that way,
That's
and trying to get the school recognized. We
mm.
made 7 of the teachers taking the master's degree,
Oh
uh,
wow.
and we managed to get 21 out of 22 requirements to
Okay.
get recognition by the state. The last requirement was the quantity of international research, the
Oh.
only one that we couldn't change.
Mm.
So they were looking, to find how it was still too early for even Norway to have that,
Wow. Yeah, Norway's
being
certainly ahead when it comes to education, that's for sure.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
It happened 100 years ago as well. That was like what happened in the States that brought homeopathy down.
Mm.
It took away the education.
Ah,
So that
okay.
was the reason for the falling.
Well, we will chat again very soon. Right now, I have to go feed my family, so I better head off.
Do that.
I'll chat with you soon.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye bye.